Have you seen them today?
Yeah, they came out.
Yeah, so there are 5 male European grey wolves in here. So yeah, if you've got to 5, then you've seen them all. They're all brothers. They came to us from Highland Wildlife Park up in the north of Scotland, and what are we now? They must be 3 and 4 now. So they're all fully grown. They're all boys, and they get on fine here together. And these guys are very closely related to your North American grey wolf, which you kind of generally see in your nature documentaries and things. These guys are just slightly leaner and slightly taller than their North American counterparts. This time of year they still look like proper wolves, I think. They've got a lot of their winter coats still, which bulks them out a bit more. And those are really important in the wild for keeping them warm and dry. They're also quite important here because despite the fact that we did build them a really lovely house to sleep in, these boys have never spent a night indoors, so they sleep outside in the wind, rain, snow, hail, everything. So those coats do help to keep the worst of the weather off, although most of the time you come in to find them soaking wet and covered in mud. But as you probably know, wolves are carnivores, so they eat meat. Here at Wild Place they're fed on kind of a mixture of things. Today they've had a calf carcass, which I don't know if they've touched yet. They're a bit of a wuss, they generally run away from it. They're also fed horse meat and rabbits as well. Out in the wild they would be looking to go for large ungulate species, generally animals that are kind of bigger than an individual wolf. Although they will take kind of hares and things if like the sort of opportunity arises. They'll eat whatever they can get. But ideally, yeah, they want these big animals, and the only way they can bring down that sort of animal is kind of by working as a team. So a group of wolves is called a pack, and the pack is central to everything that a wolf does, really, especially its hunting technique. So what these boys would do if they were out in the wild is they'd cover quite a large area tracking their prey, because their prey animals generally sort of move to follow the grazing and things, so they need to cover large distances. And they've got a really brilliant sense of smell. They're said to be about 100 times better than our own. So they can detect the slightest hint of kind of animals that have moved through the environment, even if it was a few days ago. So they can follow them over those kind of distances. And then once they've found a likely victim, they will look to kind of chase that animal to exhaustion. Excuse me. Wolves have really brilliant stamina. They can kind of jog along at about 3 or 4 miles an hour quite happily, and get up to about 30-ish miles an hour when they're really trying. And yeah, they'll kind of work in relay. So 2 of them, say, may go right up behind the animal trying to scare it and things, whilst the others hang back and conserve their energy. And then they can kind of rotate round. And inevitably 5 wolves working in a team like that can generally outrun one poor animal. And it is said that they have been known to run over 20 miles after one prey animal, so it's quite a long way, but they have got incredible stamina, much further than I can run anyway. And then what they'll do is once they kind of have run the animal to exhaustion, they will use their combined body weight to bring it down, because it's not all in the wolf's favour. That animal, being so much bigger than them, can inflict quite nasty injuries, really. So they do kind of risk their life after their dinner. And then once they've made a kill, they will gorge themselves, quite rightly so, for just 20 miles. And they can eat up to about 10 kilos of meat in one sitting. So somebody somewhere worked out that's the same as us eating 100 quarter-pound burgers one after another. So quite a lot of food. But they need to get back as much energy as they possibly can after all that exertion, and as quickly as possible, really. Excuse me. And then they may not eat then for a few days, even a few weeks and things. So here at Wild Place we do give them certain starve days or fast days where they don't get anything to eat at all. It doesn't do them any harm, they've got plenty of fat reserves on them to keep them going. It just kind of replicates a bit more what it would be like for them in the wild. Also helps to watch their weight as well, because they're not using anywhere near as much energy as they would be in the wild. So you have to watch how much they eat. Now the pack's also really important for their reproduction. So although we haven't got a breeding pack here at the moment, hopefully one day in the future we may do. And if we did, we would have a dominant pair, so a dominant male and female, who would be the only ones to produce young, and then everybody else would look after that one litter. And that's generally quite an effective way of reproducing, because if you're one of those pups, then you've got 6, 7 or 8 parents all looking after you, rather than just the 2. And generally, individuals in a pack are in some way related, so they get some genetic benefit from bringing up like their nephews or nieces or cousins or whatever. What they'll do is they'll babysit the little ones whilst they're really small and left in a den. Then as they get bigger, they'll start to bring back bits of meat for them as they wean. Excuse me, and kind of teach them all the skills they need to be a proper wolf. And they do have quite an obvious dominance hierarchy within the wolf pack. So there is a kind of there's one of them who's definitely in charge, and he'll go in and get the kind of lion's share of the kills and things, and then everybody else knows their place within that ladder. And it's quite important that they maintain that hierarchy, because if they were all to compete to be those dominant individuals, then kind of everything else that the pack does wouldn't work properly. So it wouldn't function, they couldn't hunt the way they do, and they couldn't bring up their young. So it's quite important that they kind of maintain that sort of ladder system, I suppose. And they use a lot of very subtle kind of facial expressions, bodily postures and things that we don't really notice, but it means a lot to them anyway. So it is really important. But the wolf has had a bit of a hard time of it in the past. The European grey wolf was once found all the way across the UK, and it was in this part of England until about the 12 or 1300s, and clung on into the north of Scotland into the 1800s, depending on who you listen to. But they were eventually really eradicated from here, just because as us humans, our population was growing, we were cutting down a lot of this sort of ancient woodland that they were relying on to make way for our farming, taking away a lot of their prey animals, and kind of providing them with an easy alternative in our livestock. Obviously, if you're a farmer, you're not going to be best pleased if all your lamb's being taken by a wolf. So a lot of them were shot and killed in retaliation for that. But they were also killed for all manner of things, punishment for certain crimes, all sorts. And they were eventually kind of exterminated. There's quite a lot of bad press about them, but I quite like them. They're quite shy, timid animals, really. They're not aggressive, or at least these guys aren't anyway. And in the worst point of the European grey wolf's history, they were pushed right back into kind of northeastern Europe, the most sort of remote areas, but they are now thought to be on the increase. It's thought to be about 20,000 or so of them out across Europe. Excuse me. And they're moving back west, so places like northern Italy, Germany and France, seeing an increase in numbers. So they're on the rise, which is good, and that's mostly because they are now a protected species, and there's a lot more protection of their natural habitat as well. And us humans are living more in cities than we are out in the rural areas, so there's slightly less sort of competition for space between us and them, which is great. And there is a lot of debate about them maybe one day coming back to Scotland, but I think there'll be a few more arguments before that's settled. But yeah, that's my talk. If you've got any questions, if I've missed anything, feel free to ask anything.
So how do you leave the food for them?
So at the other end, if you follow this path round, you might be able to see the calf actually. There's a smaller fenced area at the back that we can shut them out of, and then we can put the food in there and then let them back in. Because although some
compliance, you actually go to the
no, they don't really do what we ask them to. Some of our staff do go into the enclosure here with the wolves to clean up, kind of pick up the poo and things, but we never have, well, touch wood, we've never had any problems with them. But we will always go in pairs if we do go in there with them.
So they're not by any way separated where you do their jobs and their enclosure?
No, not in this part of the enclosure anyway. To take the food in, then we do separate them off because it's just pushing your luck, really. But out here, no, they're not. They are in there with us.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I think where they came from up in Scotland, I don't think they had very much kind of human contact at all, so they are very wary of us. And generally, if the boys are down this end working, then the wolves will be at the other end of the enclosure and just kind of want you to get out. So, and we do try and minimise the amount of time we spend in there, because obviously it's quite disruptive for them, quite stressful for them. So we do it as little as possible. But obviously, at some point we'll go in there and tidy up after them. I haven't quite taught them to do it themselves yet.
You don't want them to become dogs, so. That is amazing. Oh, yeah.
They seem to have any relationship with staff at all, or not really?
Sorry, with staff or with?
Yeah, with staff. I mean, obviously, there's people who's feeding them, and how they kind of responding differently to them, or.
No, not really. Me and one of the other girls, we're doing a bit of training with them at the moment, to try and get them to come over when we ask. And we are getting there slowly, but it is quite difficult because if you were to do training literally with any other animal, you would do it individually, like one-on-one. Whereas with these guys, we can't do it. You have to do all five at the same time. So it is quite difficult because some will be really good, but the others won't, and there's no way for you to kind of differentiate between it. So we are getting there, and there's certain members of staff that they seem to be more wary of than others. But whether that's just because some members of staff spend more time around here than others do and they're a bit more used to them, don't know. They seem to be a lot more confident with the public generally than with us.
Interesting.
Because they'll come, you can be sat here, they'll come right up to the glass, they'll chase their little kids around as they're running around. And they don't, I think, as much as they probably associate us with food, it's also they associate us with kind of going into the enclosure and doing things they don't really like. So, a bit of a love-hate relationship probably. But I think they kind of know that you guys are staying on the other side of the fence. Well, hopefully. So it's all right. But
Yeah, hopefully.
hopefully, yeah. They much prefer to kind of sit and watch us.
Howling through the fence.
So what do you
to
need
wind
to
them up.
do to get a job here as a...
Well, I personally did a zoology degree and then came back and started volunteered for about a year and a half, and then I was kind of in the right place at the right time, so the job came up and the rest is history.
So how long the white has been open?
It's coming up to 3 years, so not too long. We're still growing, so but there's always something new happening, which is nice. It's a nice place to work.
A uni degree in zoology.
Yeah, in zoology, yeah.
It's kind of interesting.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Yes.
Have a lovely afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Can we go around and see what they got to eat? I'm not promising anything.
Ooh, that's awesome. Stay right where you are. Thank you. Oh yeah. Oh